If you like the video or any other content on the channel, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. So like our other Custodes Codex videos, this one is going to be going over the Talons of the Emperor detachment. So I have an overview and just a list that I used on the previous battle port that I have between the Orcs and the Talons of the Emperor Custodes. The actual detachment Talons of the Emperor list, we have 2,000 points. And so for our characters for this list, we have a Leia, Valerian, a Shield Captain and a Lars Terminator. He has the Radiant Mantle for 30 points with a Guardian Spear, Kyria Draxus, and a Custodes Assassin. And then for a battle line, we just have 4 Custodian Guard, 3 have Spears, and 1 has the Vexilla with the Sword and the Shield. For our other data sheets, we have 5 Terminators, and they're going to be joined with the Shield Captain and the Terminator armor. They all have Spears, 5 Wardens, 5 Spears, 1 Vexilla, and they're going to be joining Valerian. 2 Custodes Grav Tanks just for shooting some high-powered damage down the table, 4 Prosecutors, 10 Vigilators who are going to join a Leia, and then we have our 2 units of Witch Seekers. 2,000 points, it allows me to have a little bit of that detachment rule so I can get some of these units kind of close to some of the Custodian Guard, but I don't know. I might make some tweaks to this because this was actually used with the points, so this is the new updated points, so I might try to take out maybe a few of the Terminators. So this is the list that I used against the Orcs on the previous battle report. It did pretty good, got a lot of points, but I'd still want to play with this detachment a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to go over the Talons of the Emperor detachment rule first. So we have the normal army rule for the Custodes, the martial katas here. So we have the sustained hits of Rendax. We lost the -1 to hit, but you can actually select the kata per unit now instead of army-wide, so that's a little better, but the loss to -1 does kind of hurt us. The detachment rule is the Revered Companion, so it gives the Custodes a 5-up feel no pain against mortal wounds or psychic attacks if you're within 6 inches of a Sisters model. And the Sisters receive a +1 to hit if they are within 6 inches of an Adeptus Custodes model, excluding Sisters. This could have been a fun detachment and an interesting rule, but the detachment rule is not the reason you take Talons of the Emperor. A 5-up feel no pain against mortals really isn't all that useful, and the +1 to hit only really comes into effect really for the Vigilators. You're not going to take a lot of Prosecutors for putting damage, you're going to be taking the Vigilators. They do have some really strong stratagems, but not all of them are strong, sadly. Alright, so next we have the enhancements. So we have Radiant Mantle. It's 30 points. It's a bit pricey, but so for shooting and melee, the attacking model is within 12 inches, -1 to the hit roll. It's one of the better enhancements in the detachment. I'm still not sure if I would have preferred -1 to hit for the attacking model if it's not within 12 inches, just to give it a little more long-range protection. And like I keep saying, it's a bit expensive. Gift of the Terran Artifice, and this one's 15 points, so each time a bearer makes a melee attack, add 1 to the wound roll. It's another good enhancement. You can't go wrong with a +1 to wound roll on your Blade Champion, and it's pretty cheap compared to the Radiant Mantle. And then we have our second set of enhancements here. So we have Champion of the Imperial. This one is 25 points, and it's the range of the bearer's null aegis or the deadly units ability, so your Revered Companion's detachment abilities. You increase them to 9 inches instead of 6. And this is a points filler at best. The detachment rule is pretty weak, and an extra 3 inches really isn't anything special. And then you have Aegis Protector, and this one is 20 points, and this is once per turn, the first time a saving throw is failed for the bearer's unit, change the damage to 0. This one had potential to be good, but with it being the first saving throw failed, opponents will usually try to throw you some, damage 1 stuff at you just to try to plink that through, get a wound through, and then they'll throw the bigger damage stuff at you. So if you could choose when to use it, it'd be a lot better, but the fact that it's just your first failed saving throw really brings down the potential of this enhancement. Now we're going to move on to the stratagems. So these 2 ones are pretty good. So you have Hunt as 1, it's 1 CP, a strategic ploy, so your captains can't use this for free. You use this in the movement phase, and up to 2 Custodes units until the end of the turn, units are eligible to fall back, shoot, and charge. You can only select 2 units if one of the units is a Sisters unit, and both of those units are within 6 inches of each other. So that's the restriction for a lot of these enhancements, and this restriction of having to select 2 units makes so you can't use a lot of them as a free battle tactic. I think only one of them can be used for free with your shield captain, so that really kind of hurts the viability of shield captains in this detachment. And then you have Talons Interlocked, and this is 1 CP as well, and it's a battle tactic, but it has the same restriction where you got to select 2 units, or only 1 unit if you can't select a Sisters and a Custodes unit. So you select them, and then you select an enemy target that both your Custodes units are eligible to shoot. And until the end of the phase, you improve the strength and AP of the attacks by 1. You can only attack that selected enemy unit, and this one is a fantastic stratagem to use on a big brick of Alaris Terminators. You can really pump out some damage with this. You can possibly use it on your Bolter Bikes or your Sagittarium, but your Alaris Custodes are the way to go. Especially if you're shooting into a horde, you're really going to get a lot of damage out because you're not going to go into AP 2. The strength is going to bring up to strength 5, so if you're shooting at Space Marines or anything toughness 4, you're going to be wounding on 3s now. If they have a character in there, you're re-rolling your wounds. So this is a very strong stratagem on your Alaris Terminators. So even if you can't select the 2 units, I would still use this on just 1 brick of Alaris Terminators. 2 more of the stratagems. And this one's Empiric Severance. It's a 1 CP, it's a battle tactic, and this is the only one that you can use for free with a shield captain. And this one is in your opponent's shooting phase or their fight phase just after an enemy has selected his target. 1, that's why it says 1, that's why you can use it. 1 Adeptus Custodes unit and 1 Athenius Psychona unit within 6 inches. Until the end of the phase, that gains a 4 funeral pain against mortal wounds and psychic attacks. What makes me able to use this for free, because you're just selecting this to use on the Adeptus Custodes unit, it just has a hoop you got to go through that you can only way you can use this is if you are 6 inches within a Sisters unit. So it's not using it on the Sisters unit, you just have to have the hoop to go through that you have to be close to a Sisters unit to even use this thing on your Custodes unit. It's just not really worth it. You already have a 5 up funeral pain against all these attacks if you're 6 inches within a Sister, so for 1 CP just to get a 4 up funeral pain, it's going to be very situational. If you really need your unit to survive, you're going to pop this. But other than that, it's just you're just going to hold on to your CP for the fallback and charge or the shooting one. Then next you have the Emperor's Executioners, and this is 2 CP battle tactic. Can't use it for free because once again it has the restriction. So in the start of the fight phase, up to 2 units until the end of the phase. So each time a model in those units attacks an enemy unit, if the enemy unit is below starting strength, +1 to the wound roll. Like all the other restrictions, you can only select 2 units if one of them is a Adeptus Custodes unit and one of them is a Sisters unit. It's just another stratagem that has more hoops. There's a lot of stratagems I can think of right now. The Salamanders, I play Salamanders. You can use Crucible of Battle for 1 CP just to get a +1 to wound roll if you're within 6 inches. So it does have a little bit of a hoop, but it's a lot easier to get off than this one because you don't have to try to get a unit that's below starting strength. You're going to be within 6 inches if you're using your melee, so you're going to get +1 to wound for 1 CP, no hoops. It's a battle tactic as well. You can only select 1 unit, so it's free. This one's 2 CP, has some hoops to go through, so I just don't see this one really being worth it unless you really need to make sure something needs to die. For 2 CP, it's just not going to come up all that often. Alright, so for our last 2 stratagems, we have another really good one and another kind of a stinker. So the first one is Talon Pincer, 1 CP, a battle tactic. Once again, it has the restriction of selecting up to 2 units, so you can't use this one for free, sadly, because this one would be the one I would be wanting to be doubling up as much as possible. So in your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit has ended its normal move, fallback, or advanced move, select up to 2 units within 9 inches of that enemy unit. Your units can make a normal move up to 6 inches. In my opinion, is the best stratagem in the detachment and one of the best in the book. Custodians need that little bit of extra movement. We're very slow. We don't have fight first anymore, so this stratagem allows us to get around not having fight first because you can fall back 6 inches trying to make them to fail the charge, or you can use this for a little extra movement to getting onto objectives for a little extra threat towards a target next turn. So yes, we don't have fight first, but this is a great stratagem. This is one of the reasons why I would play this detachment again, just for this stratagem. And the last one is Shield of Honor, 1 CP, Epic Deed. Can't use this one with a shield captain. And this one is in your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Psychona infantry unit selected as a target and is 6 inches within an Adeptus Custodes unit, excluding another Sisters unit. A lot of hoops, yes. Until the end of the phase, any attack against that Sisters unit must instead target your Adeptus Custodes unit, unless that unit is not eligible to target. For all that big long paragraph, it's really just if you have a Sisters unit within 6 inches of maybe some Wardens and they want to shoot those Sisters, you can pop this and they have to shoot your Wardens instead, as long as they are eligible to shoot those Wardens. If they can't, they can shoot your Sisters. So There's a lot of hoops, and this is pretty situational, but it's pretty strong with Alea because she has Vice first, so you put some Vigilators with Alea, put them in front of your big Wardens unit or your big Terminators unit. You don't get charged. This can work, but it's pretty situational. Like most of my list videos, I do have my job categories just to kind of have some ideas how I want to play this list. I do have my primary, so units used to gain and hold objectives, just to get as many primary points as possible. My secondary units, these units are used to gain secondary scoring and disrupting the scoring potential of my opponent's army. Then my attack units, these units I use to target the opponent's most dangerous damage dealing units and just their primary scoring units to try to neuter the scoring for the primary and just to try to take out these big damage units that might have the potential of killing my big Custodes units. So I want to try to attack these as soon as possible, get them targeted out and killed. For my primary units, I do have Valerian with the 5, and without the need for a shield captain as much in this detachment, Valerian does make a cheaper replacement. I use him for leading the Wardens. He does have the -1 to AP in combat. This can really make a difference versus a combat army, but he's a bit more army dependent for him really to shine. Draxus with her 4 Custodian Guard unit, and this is the staple of most Custodes lists. It's great anti-infantry shooting. You can't really go wrong with her. Especially with their 18-inch lone op, it helps protect against them long-range firepower. And then I just have the 4 prosecutors for standing on my home field objective. And next we have our secondary units. So our secondary units, we have the Custodes Assassin, and this one's a great lone operative for gaining secondary points. She has her up-down ability and just making a battle tactic more expensive. CP reroll is a great one to target if you don't really know what battle tactic to target. This one can really start costing your opponent CP if they're constantly trying to CP reroll. Then I have my 2 units of Witch Seekers. These are just cheap scout units for gaining early aerial denial, extend, deploy. Some of those early objectives are sometimes harder for my Custodes to get unless I want to advance everything up in the table and into dangerous positions. These 2 units of Witch Seekers are good, especially just so I can have them close to some of my Custodes units to try to get that detachment ability working in some of them stratagems. Then last, we have the attack units. I do have a bit more attack units in this list than some of my other lists. First, I have Alea with her 10 Vigilators, and this is the only unit in the Codex with Fights First. It can be used as a buffer to protect some of your Wardens from being charged, or used to cut down some low to mid-strength infantry units. This did very well against my game against the Orcs. Terminator Captain with the Alaris Terminators, and this unit I put into Deep Strike so I can use as a rapid ingress threat. Radiant Mantle helps keep this unit alive. I can use this to target the opponent's big character units or their vehicles since I can reroll my wounds against them. And then Golden Light allows me to handle one threat on one side of the board, pick them up, and then go handle another threat. And then the shooting stratagem for the Talons interlock to give them extra AP and strength can be huge for this unit. It can allow them to punch a lot harder than they used to be able to and kind of punch into some toughness 4 units that usually be wounding them on 4s. Now with this you can wound them on 3s. Then you have your Caladius Grav Tanks. I have 2 of these, and these are the best anti-tank unit in the Codex. Sadly, they're very expensive. You can get them 3D printed, and then it's even more needed in our Codex now. All infantry lists will be a lot harder to pull off because we just are easier to kill now. So it's going to be hard to get to the table to get into melee range with the opponent's big long-range weapons and their vehicle units. You can get them 3D printed, which is much cheaper than the Forge World ones. Alright, so we're just going to end the video with my final thoughts. So the Detachment Rule, the +1 to hit, only really helped the Vigilators. It didn't benefit from it at all. Also against the Orcs, the 5 of Feel No Pain against Mortals or Psychics never came into play once. I don't really like the Detachment Rule. It should be against Devastating Wounds. Hopefully they'll change it later on, but for now, it's pretty useless. And then the stratagems carry this detachment. Even more so than the Orc champions, the reactive movement and the fallback and charge stratagems are very strong. And then the bonus to your strength and AP shooting stratagem can be quite helpful as well. Alea and the Vigilators, they were great. They did great, but having access to Fight First and a few useful stratagems is nice. And that's the kind of the sad thing of Vigilators. They hit the same as a Custodian Guard unit pretty much for the AP 2, damage 2, but they're less strength. And then when you add Alea in there, it starts making this unit quite costly. So it's a very neat unit. I'll probably play around with some more, but it seems a bit overcosted. And then you have your Grav Tanks. I don't like with our small unit pool that we have too many auto includes. It just makes so you fill your list up full of auto includes and you just don't have a lot of play for bringing other units. But with the state of the Codex and the lack of our defensive power, it seems at least almost 2 of these are mandatory in any kind of competitive Custodes list now. The Shield Host list I'm going to be putting out doesn't have any tanks, but We're going to see how that does against the Necrons with a battle report later on this week. And then the total strength of this detachment. So I would rank this one above the Orc detachment, but the rule's boring. It just doesn't come up all that much. A 5 up Feel No Pain against Mortals or Psychic is nothing really. Who cares about that? It's really the Stratagems that carry this one. The Stratagems are really powerful. The fallback and charge, reactive movement is so strong. After I play all these detachments, I'm either going to try Null Maidens 2 probably sometime. I'll throw a ranking video for these. Shield Host is coming out soon, but I do worry about the strength of the total codex. So that was the video for the Talons of the Emperor. And like I say, thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by.